Well, good Wednesday morning, and how are you? Yeah, we're rarely in studio on a Wednesday. I'm loving this, getting an opportunity to see some new people walking the halls of Adventure Unknown in Fenton. If you didn't know, that's where our studios are. After a couple of years, we moved from Richmond Heights to Fenton, Missouri, and there's so many opportunities here. We can't wait to introduce you more and more to the incredible businesses. If you're a small business and you're looking for other small businesses to support you, that is exactly what we did over here. We have opportunities to take our show on a stage, do it live with an audience where you get to interact with us in person, not just typing things up. So if you would like that, let us know. We'll have opportunities for you like that. We have other wellness and health opportunities that we're thinking of doing, some events. Remember the gala we had for Yuppie Puppy, our very first year? Other events like that is really why we came over to this space. So excited for that. Good morning to all of you. Feel free to say hello to your community. We're just getting started. We've got weather, we've got news you can use, some sports news, and boy, the internet is buzzing in the racing world. I can't wait to tell you about that. There's also ups and downs about the new Superman movie that we'll talk about. And then we have a very inspirational story. We love to shine the spotlight on our younger generation. And I have one in particular that we had come in to St. Louis to tell his inspirational story. And I'm just going to say this. He was in a pretty dark place from an athletic standpoint when all of his dreams in baseball came crushing down. He looked over, he picked up a Bible, and boy, did his life change. So we've got faith that's going to be playing into today's show for sure. So let's get you all signing on. Again, starting, good morning to you. Feel free to say good morning to all of your family and friends. If you're new to the show, welcome aboard. We always ask you, let us know where you're watching from. If you're from our immediate area, which is St. Louis, Missouri, of course, you can let us know that. If you're across the river in Illinois, or if you are states away watching live or you watch later. If you watch later, just do a little hashtag replay and then feel free to comment on any of the stories at that point. All right. Well, good morning to you. Let's get underway with our immediate areas weather. We've been talking about some hot days. Did you see you yesterday? Did you have rain? Did you have storms? There were the possibilities of hail that some people were talking about. We did definitely have some rain and it got pretty windy in our area. So let me know if that affected you. We do have a slight chance of some spot storms that could pop up today. 89 for the high, 73 for the low. The Cardinals are back in action at home. We'll let you know what they did last night in sports. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, really actually all the way through Thursday of next week. We've got a slight chance of rain in the forecast. 92 for the high tomorrow. We'll be checking in with our aspiring meteorologist Beckett Moore on Friday. We'll see how the rain's looking for the weekend. Tomorrow's high will be 95. Friday's high will be 95. We go into the weekend. We finally see the 8s back into the forecast, but upper 80s. And then all next week, very slight chances of rain and pretty much staying that same way. We could just kind of hit press, play, repeat, because we're talking low 90s to maybe the upper 80s and close to 90 for pretty much the next 10 days. So that's a forecast for you, a look ahead for our immediate area. Okay, if you're flying anytime soon, we haven't seen something like this in 20 years. Could we finally not have to take our shoes off? That is what everyone's talking about this morning, because this one guy actually said, I got stinky feet. I don't want to take my shoes off. Exactly. I always have to remember to pack a pair of socks and put them in my purse. What about you? It's been a long time that we have had to do just that. Well, now travelers racing to catch a flight at U.S. airports no longer are required to remove their shoes during security screenings. According to Homeland Security's Secretary, the end of the ritual put in place almost 20 years ago was immediately effective nationwide. A pilot program showed the TSA had the equipment needed to keep the airports and the aircraft safe while allowing people to keep their shoes on. While shoe removal no longer is standard procedure at airport security checkpoints, some travelers still may be asked to take off their footwear if they think additional layers of screening are necessary. The travel newsletter Gate Access first reported that the TSA planned to make the security screening change very soon. Now, I'll tell you, I traveled in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico a year ago, and nobody was taking their shoes off. And I thought, what the heck? Is this a thing? So I think it may have started a little bit in other countries. But there you go. If you're traveling anytime soon, Keep those shoes on. We've been updating you on the devastation in Texas, and anytime we get new information, want to pass this along to you. Again, as the death toll continues to mount and the search continues, here's the latest for you. Texas inspectors have approved Camp Mystic's disaster plan 2 days before the deadly flood. That is what records are showing at this point. Texas inspectors signed off on the emergency planning. The Department of State Health Services released the records yesterday showing the camp compiled with a host of state regulations. They complied with a host of state regulations regarding procedures to be implemented in case of a disaster. And among them, instructing campers what to do if they need to evacuate and assigning specific duties to each staff member and counselor. 5 years of inspection reports released to the Associated Press do not offer any details of those plans at Mystic, raising some new questions now about the camp's preparedness ahead of the torrential July 4th rainfall in flood-prone Texas Hill Country. The Weather Service, the National Weather Service, issued a flood watch for the area July 3rd at 1:18 in the afternoon. That danger prompted at least one of the roughly 18 camps along the Guadalupe River to move dozens of campers to higher ground. But again, interesting news that, again, it was just 2 days before the deadly flood that Texas inspectors had approved their disaster plan. And now many people are looking at that saying, could this disaster have been avoided or averted in any way? Or could the death toll not be as high as it is? So we will continue to follow that for you and bring you any new news. Now we bring it local, more closer to home here in our immediate St. Louis City, St. Louis County area. From a fire preparedness standpoint, there are multiple cities getting together for a new training facility. 4 cities in St. Louis County partnering for this, and they will improve the fire training for multiple cities. The groundbreaking was yesterday, ushering in the facility that will be located near Interstate 44 and Shrewsbury. Those 4 cities, by the way, are Brentwood, Clayton, Maplewood, and Richmond Heights. And it's their partnership to enhance the training for our firefighters and our first responders with the creation of a new fire training facility. The city said this partnership makes this cost-effective and more comprehensive than a single city going at it alone. Love that. Okay, we want to freeze these identity thefts. Again, these thieves are just getting trickier and trickier as how you're looking at things going, is this real? Is this a scam? I mean, I literally just sent an email out this morning going, is this a scam? Well, here is how you can freeze identity thieves, in their track. The identity theft can be costly, maddening, of course, to fix. Statistica is reporting that there were more than 3,100 data breaches last year, impacting more than 1.35 billion people, leaving them exposed to identity theft. Experts say freeze your credit with all 3 major credit bureaus. That's one of the most effective ways to protect against this. If you're applying for more credit, whether it's a mortgage, maybe rent for an apartment or a credit card, it's easy then to unfreeze it, because a lot of you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, if I do that, am I going to have to go through all this rigmarole to try to get it back? Nope. They say it's absolutely the best way to do it because these data breaches are just going to continue to happen. Also, they're noting that credit monitoring is often available through other sources, not just those offered after a data breach. So if that in fact happens, freeze it and then unfreeze it when you need to apply for some type of a loan. Well, President Trump is being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And we're going to go back in history and tell you some of the presidents. And maybe you can even drop a comment in right now if you think you know some of the presidents who have won it in the past. Netanyahu has actually been the one that is nominating President Trump. U.S. President Donald Trump being nominated. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Trump that he recommended him for the prestigious award, handing the American leader the letter that he sent the Nobel Committee. Trump's been nominated now several times by people within the U.S. as well as politicians abroad, but that's only one small step in the secretive process. Once all the nominations have come in, the committee, which is made up of 5 members appointed by the Norwegian parliament, sifts through them and ensures they were actually made by an eligible nominator. By the way, you cannot nominate yourself. So we go back in history. Do you remember in 2009, former U.S. President Barack Obama won the Peace Prize? And Also, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, he won the Peace Prize in 2002 for the work that he did after leaving the White House. Well, we've got a story from Wright City, and this is amazing and amazing thanks, I should say, that goes out to our first responders. We always say how they are incredible heroes. This story about our police officers and our firefighters, where a Wright City woman was brought back to life personally, thanks to first responders. This is out of Warrenton, Missouri. Back in May, a Wright City resident, Charla Schrader, was at home when she passed out. She suffered a seizure. She had a heart attack. Thankfully, her 12-year-old daughter witnessed what happened, and her husband, who was upstairs, had CPR training. I want you to hear the important aspects of this. Teach your kids what to do to call 911 at a very young age. Any of you in the household, if you can learn CPR. The daughter ended up calling 911. Her husband performed CPR. First responders rushed to the scene. The third shock was actually when she converted into a rhythm that had a pulse, according to the lieutenant from the Warren County Ambulance District. Following 2 days in a coma, 8 days of being hospitalized, the woman would eventually go to the ambulance, fire, and police departments that responded to her emergency and delivered treats to them. On Tuesday, she attended the Warren County Ambulance District Board meeting with her family. She said she wanted to personally present those first responders with a Clinical Save Award. She said, I wanted to give back and let them know what they did and how they saved me. And again, how she's now with her family to tell this incredible story. Okay, you've heard or probably seen on forums before, who do you want to designate as your beneficiary? Do you leave that open? Do you need to go back and see how important it is? This is why it's important to designate a beneficiary, why naming them is key. It's a simple way, by the way, to help protect your estate and avoid probate. God forbid if something happens to you, you do not want everything to go to probate court because it will get hung up for years. So what is a beneficiary? An individual or an entity that you assign in your will and other legal documents, as well as your accounts, to receive your property and money when you die. Instructions for how your assets are distributed are referred to in different ways depending on the account type. So it might be POD, which is payable on death, or many of you might know TOD, which is transfer on death. Beneficiary designations for workplace retirement accounts, life insurance policies, annuities. Who can be one? Typically, you want to name maybe your spouse, your children, other financial dependents. How do you do it? Well, you generally need to provide their full legal name and date of birth so they can be contacted and verified before they can receive your account funds or your life insurance death benefits. Why do you need one? Even if you already have a will or trust that outlines how your assets should be distributed, designating this beneficiary can be a powerful estate planning tool. In fact, the designations can actually take precedence over wills and trusts in most cases. So make sure you are updating them. If you by chance have named one in the past, that person has passed away, make sure that you update that. I would really love to do a future story or have an in-studio guest that goes more in depth in this because it's very important. My best friend's dad, that was actually his job, finding people money that was tied up in court or money that they didn't even know they had. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't designate a beneficiary, it will be tied up for many years. All right, let's get into some entertainment news. Superman, is it good? Is it bad? Well, it all depends on who the critic is. New movies to watch for you this week on streaming and in theaters. See Superman, rent Sovereign, stream Drop on Peacock, and more. That's according to Brent Arnold from Yahoo Entertainment. He says Superman falls almost entirely flat and has to be the most disappointing movie of the year so far. Now remember, it's all up to that particular critic. I remember years ago when I was younger, Rogers and Ebert, and I was like, I don't agree with them. So I would go and watch on my own and go, I disagree. But James Gunn's Superman flying into theaters, watch it and then let us know what you think. He said, I found the alleged franchise starter to be disappointing, though comic book fans may find things to love. He said, luckily, there are some great flicks freshly available to rent in Sovereign and The Unholy Trinity. Plus, there are even more that are brand new to streaming, like a documentary celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jaws on Disney's Plus. That sounds cool. And the Hitchcock thriller Drop on Peacock. Plenty more, including The Bear in Opus, which is now on HBO Max. Again, so Superman, I've actually been interested to go and see this, but now it's interesting that he's saying it's falling flat, calling it the most disappointing movie of the year. I think that might be a little far to go, but we'll see. So let us know if you go and see it, maybe come later this week or into Monday. If you do see it, remember to drop a comment to me. All right, and more entertainment news from the music world. This is a big story for Pearl Jam fans. The drummer, Matt Cameron, says he's leaving the band after nearly 30 years. The 62-year-old Matt Cameron announced his departure in a social media post on Monday. He said, and I quote, "After 27 fantastic years, I've taken my final steps down the drummer riser for the mighty Pearl Jam. Much love and respect to the entire band for inviting me back in 1998. He did not give a reason for his departure. All right, in sports news, the Cards are back home after they didn't completely lose the series, but they didn't do the best against the Cubs in Chicago, but back home, and they beat the Washington Nationals 4-2. It's the same two teams tonight at 6:45, and this one's got the internet buzzing. Are you an F1 fan? If you are, first of all, one person's out and the other is switching teams, but this is something, folks, that's not new. Max Verstappen has been talking about going over to Mercedes, and now they are, in fact, confirming this. The internet is exploding after the dismissal of the CEO, Christian Horner. He has been dismissed with immediate effect as CEO and team principal of Red Bull Racing, and that has led to a wave of reaction on social media. I mean, all over the place, everywhere I looked. Fans, followers, Formula One insiders voicing their opinions on him leaving. Now it's all about, did he know? Should he said a long time ago? Max Verstappen, speculation that he is again deciding to move to Mercedes. Was a decision to prevent him from leaving? Who knows? But here's some four drivers who could replace him. The four-time world champion has a contract with Red Bull until the end of 2028, supposedly, though break clauses are known to exist that could see him a free agent well before that date. So, who are the possible, other four that they're talking about? It's not necessarily an admission that they're saying that Verstappen is definitely going, but who knows? The Englishman, George Russell, the leading candidate for a couple of reasons. Also, Isaac Hadjar, is that it? Again, I'm not real good in the Formula One team. I know some of them. Liam Lawson, they're naming, and then Arvid Lindblad. If you are a Formula One fan, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sorry if I just butchered their names, but I am a Max Verstappen fan, so it'll be interesting to see going from Red Bull to Mercedes. And having said that, I can't show you that because it's personal to my husband, but there is a company called Imagine My Likeness, and I'm going to show you a picture that they did of me on a Harley. Beautiful photo. I cannot go on and on and on more about them. I had a custom one made, though, because my husband's such a big Formula One fan, where it's a Red Bull racing car. It's me holding a glass of bourbon and then a cigar, because that's his thing. Again, in a provocative pose and just very sexy. It was a great thing for him for his birthday present. I can't show you that one, but I will be circulating on social media the one that we did on a motorcycle. But when I had the custom one made for him with the Red Bull car, it was funny because he was like, well, that's the last year probably he'll be in the Red Bull car. So he talked about that for me about a month ago. So again, to Formula One fans, this is nothing new. All right, in the national news calendar, I was telling Miranda, one of my interns, that today is one of my days. And she was like, National Dimples Day for all of us that have dimples. Today's our day. It's also National Sugar Cookie Day. So a lot of things going on for you in some of the news you can use, and also the National Day of Calendar. Now that allows us to take our break, and then I cannot wait to introduce you to Darian Crisp. He is our guest today. We have him coming in town. We have us coming in studio, all for you for a very special show. We're going to tell you about his time playing baseball. We're going to tell you about a time where his scholarship was revoked, how he went into a really dark place, thought, what the heck am I going to do? I thought that was the direction I was going. And then he looked over and he saw a Bible sitting on a table. I'm just going to leave it right there. His entire life changed with faith. So Darian will be my guest when we return. Monica version of the Real Monica Adams show at my favorite restaurant. There's something about a coffee house that's just very warm and welcoming.
Gives you that sense of community.
What are you most proud of since you've opened it?
I cry easily. I'm thankful for everybody here.
You opened the door during the middle of the pandemic. You got the best Italian restaurant in the United States. Here in St. Louis, you put us on the map. Does it scare you? Do you go through fear?
Terrifying.
So how do you get past the fear?
We find something to laugh about.
Oftentimes, we look past the creations and blessings that God has put in front of us. We often get caught up in thinking that success and happiness comes from the root of something that's monetized. But during that time, we fail to forget that happiness comes from experiencing different things, and ultimately being around people to experience those things. Lately, in my craft of filmmaking and being a filmmaker, I found myself getting attached a lot more to nature and the things around us. I realized true happiness isn't just locking in that $2,000 client, but truly being able to go out into the world and capture nature and be in sync with art and be in sync with nature.
And welcome back. Thanks again for tuning in to the Real Monica Adams show. Yes, a lot of good mornings. Rose, you made me laugh because we haven't seen all of you say that in a while. Good morning to the Monica's Maniacs. That's what you all call yourself. I don't call you maniacs. But yes, we love this community that has formed over the last 2.5 years. And one of the things we asked on social media was, what would you like to see more of? And number one, inspirational stories. We heard you, and that is what we're going to continue to do more of. Bring you that hope, bring you the inspiration, bring you the positivity, and the best way to wake up in the morning. And we love when we have different guests on because they bring more and more followers to us. Remember, we're on Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, Rumble, LinkedIn, all live right now. You can watch a little bit. If you have to rush off to work, be sure to come back and watch this story. Let me introduce my guest, Darian Crisp. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you just traveled in, what, a day or two ago?
A day or two. Yep. Yesterday, I just came in from Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
He's sharing his time between the two.
Definitely have to.
But I was doing a lot of research on you last night, even more than I had about a week ago. You and I are both from the same area.
Really?
Florissant.
Oh my gosh, that's fire.
I did not know that.
Wow.
So where did you go to school?
I went to high school at DeSmet,
Okay.
But there was a Catholic school down the street called St. Rose Elementary.
Okay.
Yep, so I went there for middle school.
I went to Sacred Heart.
I know, yep.
And then I went to school at St. Thomas Aquinas Mercy,
Wow.
which is not around anymore, unfortunately. But yes, I was like, oh, Florissant.
Yeah.
The best, cool kids are from Florissant.
That's right. That's right, definitely.
So but you also kind of share your time. So let's kind of go through all of this. You went to St. Charles Community College, was that?
Yep.
Right? And then let's go into your baseball days because that's kind of where we need to start.
Definitely.
You started playing at what age? How young were you?
I started playing, I want to say at the age of 4.
Oh, wow.
I started playing at the age of 4. I did a bunch of different sports at the time, but it was something about baseball that I grabbed a hold of a lot more. And my dad played baseball all throughout high school, and he played in men's league. So he kind of, I had the genes to go really towards that sport.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
And so what positions did you all play during your time?
During my time, I was a left-handed pitcher as well as playing outfield and first base.
And so you went pretty far.
Yeah.
Right? And you had this beautiful passion inside of you
Yes.
and this dream, but something went awry. So take us there.
So my freshman year at college, I ended up playing at Heartland Community College out in Normal, Illinois. And, it was a good experience. I was there on a full scholarship, and I felt something just wasn't complete at the time. And, obviously when you get in college sports, life speeds up, the game often speeds up, and, sometimes in college it gets more on a business perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I found myself feeling empty and a void during my time there, and just the opportunities that I thought was arising, they weren't.
Hmm.
And it was almost, having hopes of things, but it was a different outcome. So I had a moment where just at that time I knew who God was, but I didn't just know God. And it really explained why I felt the way I felt during that time.
Well, this is a God wink, okay? However you want to say it. That's how I call it. God wink. Definitely, you can see God's hands all over this. So Darian's going along, he's playing, he's feeling the disconnect.
Mhm.
And just when you're feeling that, you then get handed to you, you're not a good fit. They
Yes.
revoked your scholarship.
Yes, they did. Yes,
What
they
did
did.
that do to you at that point when you hear that? Oh, there it is. There's the breath, right, Darian? There it is. That happens to you, and you think, well, huh?
Yeah.
But you also at the same time were feeling the disconnect.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm sure at that very given moment, this is what you all need to hear. At that very moment, you're not going, okay, yeah, this is fun. Thanks, God. Instead, it is what?
It is, wow. It is, thoughts. I had a moment during that conversation when the words of "this is not a good fit for you" came out their mouth. I had a flashback of everything I've done at my time at that school to give everything I got to the game to give myself a competitive edge off the field. And I felt a deepness of feeling like it was thrown away. And I was so speechless. I tried to get out a word. I couldn't even say anything because after us winning the World Series and coming home, I'm thinking it was a different outcome. And they came to my face and told me that. And I was like, whoa, like it took me a different direction. But in that moment too, I had to realize that, you can want whatever you want in life, but when it's not from God, He gonna take it out your life whether you want it or not. And I ain't want them to pull the scholarship. I didn't even think they was gonna pull the scholarship. I played really well that year, but they told me this was not a good fit for you, and it completely took a turn. And I was just, yeah, it was a feeling that I've never felt or never expressed in front of coaches, but I was very emotional at that time. And walking out of that office and all of my teammates being out there waiting for their exit meetings and walking through there and trying to wipe and cover up tears because I gave so much heart and compassion and effort to this game, and to see a coach tell me that, you know, this isn't a fit for you. Like, probably this is not a good school for you. It hurt. And to express that type of emotion to the players, on the team, and some of the players had envious towards me, like I almost felt like I was walking through them and I felt defeated. And I remember going outside and my roommate coming to me, he was like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "I just gotta go home. Like, I just gotta go, get on the road." Normal Illinois is 2 hours away from St. Louis, but when I tell you that drive felt like 6 hours, I mean, like, it was constant. Like, I was breaking down. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know what I was gonna do. But as I got halfway through, I told myself, you know what? It's okay to feel emotional about those things,
Mhm.
but it's time to move on. So after that, when I got home, I got back to work.
If you're just tuning in, again, we're talking with Darian Crisp. We're telling his story. And for any of you that want to say, oh my gosh, Darian, you have inspired me, because that's why we bring people in to tell their story, but then you see your own self in that story. Again, could it be a professional or a personal story in your life? Because again, we get the highs and the lows and the roller coaster
Definitely.
ride, the emotions like crazy. As you were just mentioning that, when they say you're not a good fit, did they give you more context? Did they elaborate? What was it?
They didn't give me much of a context. That was the one clue that I felt like was left out. But a lot of times when God moves in your life, He's not going to explain to you why He makes the decisions He makes on your life.
Mhm.
That's not for you to understand or know why, because that's not your path or your purpose, what God has for you. So at the end of the day, I've spent so much time trying to figure out that why. When I've talked with coaches for my recruiting process, they've asked me that why. I was a freshman. I hit over 300, slugged 600. We won a World Series. You got a year left of JUCO baseball. Why would you leave school where you guys were arguably the best JUCO in all of college baseball in 2023? And for me, it's hard to explain. I just tell coaches simply, you would have to ask those coaches, I didn't understand at the time. I was still so heated and had envy of why that was the case. But a lot of times, God will never share that because it's time for you to move on to different seasons of your life.
He had something bigger planned for
That's
you.
right.
And that is what brought you to me.
Yes,
And I can't
ma'am.
wait to see what we're getting ready to do together. If you're just tuning in, once again, Darian Crisp, and you already saw founder, right? The creative aspect of what he does, which we're going to get to in just a second. But for all of you, when he had that drive home that felt like 6 hours or even a day, there's so much that's happening between you, God. If you're not faith-based, it's you maybe trying to find, or if you were and you turned away, it's okay. We're not berating you. It's hoping that you can find your way back, because otherwise you're just completely lost. And I always say that it feels like you're drowning and you're just waiting for
Yes,
someone to
yes,
throw you a life
yes,
preserver.
yes.
I saw some, we're going to go ahead and fast forward.
Mhm.
I saw some of the incredible videos that you have done. And I really love the one where you drive up to the park, you get your skateboard out, and your hands are against the wheel. And everyone's like, I got chill right now, Darian. So many people are like, yes, I feel that. All the comments
Yes.
were, you are really, truly explaining how so many of us feel in life. But you sat there and you're like, what am I doing with my life? So I know that you are a creative. I know that you're putting things out there to connect all of us,
Yes.
but you put yourself in that.
Yes. Yes. I will say that what I tell people all the time when I create, I try to create to feel, because it's all types of stories that you can make out of here. But the best stories when you can connect with people, and you can connect with people through feelings. The same way I feel about things that's going on in life, other people are able to connect through that. So through my gifts, through my purpose of what I have and what I create, I try to create to allow people to feel from it, to be inspired from it, to reflect on things they go through, but also too to understand who to go to for guidance,
Yes.
who to go to for reassurance, who to go to when you have doubts, when you have anxiety, who to go to who's gonna ease those things in your mind.
And it's interesting because in that particular piece, he says, what am I doing? I'm not going to college to become a doctor. I'm not going to college to become a lawyer. I'm making films. What am I doing here? Like, sometimes you question yourself, but
Yes.
if he wants you to stay the course, he'll continue to put that back
That's right.
inside of you.
That's
right.
right.
And I operate on chills. That's just that to me, it's always him going, yes, 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 don't go anywhere. This is where I want you to go.
Definitely.
So Darian, when you come back home, and I know for so many aspects, you are emotional after what happened. You are questioning, well, what I thought this was the course I was going.
Yes.
When you come back home, do you feel not only defeated, do you feel ashamed? Do you feel embarrassed for what you're going to tell your family, your friends?
I felt like, I felt that I had a chip on my shoulder to prove them wrong, to prove myself wrong, and in that moment, it was still one key thing that was missing, and things got progressively worse. I was training at a facility out in Fenton area, and I had a key to it from a coach I played with. So I would go there every morning around 4 a.m. and train. And I remember one day as I was hitting in the cage, it was flashbacks in my mind of just what the coaches said, everything I went through with the players and everything. And I broke down in the cage just because I've gave so much to that game that I almost lost myself in the process of it, you know? And I remember one day driving back to go work out, and I had my dad's car, and problems started happening with it, and the transmission blew out. And at the time, my parents were just finishing up a divorce, and they couldn't fix the car. And so I had to limit how much I trained at that time, because it came a moment where your parents believe in your dreams, but it comes a time where sometimes reality hits when you got problems going on. They like, look, you got to figure something out. You got to take a different approach, different path. So from training 5 days a week to training maybe one time, just due to the resources that I had, it took a tack on me mentally. At the time I was playing at St. Charles, I ended up transferring, and I lived about 35 minutes away from there. And it was also hard as far as transportation getting there, because now my parents have more commitments on their plate. And, I'm 20, 21 at the time, and it just was a lot. But during that time, I spent a lot of time at home. And I remember sitting down on my bed and looking at the ceiling and seeing the MLB draft up there, and it's like I felt like I was so far from it, so far from it. And my mom came past my room one time because she knew something was wrong. I would sit in my room in silence. It would be a Saturday, Friday, Sunday when I wasn't having mandatory practice, and I would just sit there in silence. And she told me, she was like, I don't know what God's trying to do, but God's trying to sit you down.
Mm.
And one night, I was sitting by my bed and I broke down crying, and I remember I had a Bible on my dresser that I had never opened up. And it was times where when I did open up, I didn't understood it, but at the time you have to put in the effort. As you build your relationship with God, he'll allow you to understand the Bible, the scriptures, the word in a way that reflects to you. So I just opened it up, and I started reading it because I surrendered. At that point, I just knew, like, I needed something, and I didn't go to that, and I'm like, I gotta try something else. And so during that time, prayer is a big thing, and being specific in your prayers. I prayed for God to show me something else that I was good at outside of baseball, because baseball consumed my life. Baseball was everything I knew. I thought that was the only way out for me. That's the only thing that I thought I was good at. And at the time, I started vlogging my baseball journey to kind of, like, lighten and bring some fun back to the game at my new college. And everybody enjoyed it. All the kids enjoyed it. The coaches was like, yeah, but they tolerated it. So so I brought fun back to the game. And I remember one day I would go to Best Buy and I would look at this specific camera, and it was a Sony A6100, and it was $700-800, and I just kept going back looking at it, fascinated by it. And I told my mom one Friday, I told her next Friday I was gonna buy this camera, and she looked at me crazy because I ain't had no
How much
money.
was it?
It was $700.
Yeah, that's a lot. And
That's
you
a
were how
lot.
old at the time?
I was 21.
Yeah, that's a lot of money,
That-
period, for anybody.
It is. And at that time, I could say that I was probably financially irresponsible. So it was one of those things where it's like, you ain't got no money, like, I don't know how you gonna do it.
Mom's like, well, I'm not buying it. Well, that's actually a very good teaching tool for a parent of, if you want something bad enough, you will
That's
move
right.
mountains to make it happen.
That's right. That's right. And so I told her, I was like, I don't know how it's gonna happen, but God's gonna make a way. Friday came around. I reached out to some of my relatives. My uncle sent me some money. I had leftover Pell Grant money from my school, and my mom told me, I don't know what it is, but God told me to give you the rest of the money. And
Please give me chill.
when I tell you, having that camera opened up a side of me I never thought was possible. I mean, like, the times that I was sitting at home, I was creating things. I was creating stories. I was, vlogging, but most importantly, I started falling in love for filmmaking and cinematography. I love the way the films look, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I want to learn this. And I remember, shooting something for my mom just around the house, because eventually she got annoyed with that camera, because I'm over here, she eating and cooking, and I'm over here like, hold on, let me get this shot. Like,
Why are you in my face, Darian?
literally. So
We're going to take a quick break. So it's interesting to me, prior to you walking into that store, were you ever fascinated by cameras? What brought you to that? Because to me, it's that thing. Hold on to that comment. Because many times I believe that there's whispers that happen in our lives. Then there's a smack in the face, I always say. And then there's a gut punch. So I want to know if that time you walked in the store was finally the gut punch. And did we dismiss the whispers prior to, right? Darian Crisp, again, is our guest. If you have any questions or comments for Darian, feel free to drop them in. But again, inspiration, and there's so many more levels we're going to go with this. Don't go anywhere.
Carroll House has the furniture you're dreaming of.
For big family gatherings, for entertaining friends, or just hanging out.
From home or resting after work.
For kids growing up, or young adults moving out.
Whether you're updating your first home, your next home, or your dream home.
Whatever the reason you're shopping, we have the furniture you're dreaming of at Carroll House.
Because you like nice things.
Yep.
And since you have my laptop, I don't have anything for comments or anything, so just let me know. So welcome back once again to the Real Monica Adams Show. Darian Crisp is our guest, and we are talking about his inspirational story. But I want you to think of wherever you are in life. If you feel lost, if you feel off course, it's okay. There is a bigger plan for you, a bigger story for you. Let it unfold if you're willing. I know it's hard. A lot of people say, but I'm financially strapped. He just said, well, hey, I was irresponsible with money, but hey, God said, this is what I want you to do. So I went into the break asking, can you now look back and say, oh, there was the whisper?
Yes. I always make content.
Okay.
And I remember at my time at Heartland, I was making baseball content, inspirational baseball content. And I had one of those videos go viral, and I was like, oh my gosh, because I showed up to practice and they was like, yo, we saw your TikTok video. I'm like, oh my gosh. But, I've always had a passion for recording things, and I didn't realize that till I looked back in not only the content that I made, but my mom sent me a picture back when I was 16 of me fascinated with a tripod with a phone on it.
There it
I was
is.
just looking
You
at
just
it.
gave me a chill. There's
Yeah.
the whisper. That was the beginning.
Yes.
But you didn't know it back
I
then.
didn't know it back then.
Oh, I love
did
it.
not.
See, there's whispers that happen. And sometimes when you just sit, do you meditate or journal, by the way?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Wow.
One of my spots, and I recommend it to anybody out there if you're in the St. Louis area, Creve Coeur Park.
Yes.
I love going to, when I was down here, I was going to Creve Coeur every morning and sitting by one of those docks and just, journaling, spending time with God, talking with God. Like, that's one of the places that really built the relationship with God.
Creve Coeur is amazing, Darian, for so many reasons. Sitting there by the water, watching the rippling of the water, really
Yes.
being peaceful, being present, being focused, asking for guidance.
Yes.
Then if you want the physical side of it, do the steps.
Oh, yeah. Those steps will get you. Those steps will definitely get you.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's right when you pull
Oh,
in. Some
man.
people don't even know that they're there.
Yeah.
Pull in, turn to that corner right away, and then find the steps. It's amazing. Then go back by the water and just sit there. And just mentally, physically, spiritually, you will have been balanced
Yes.
there.
Yes.
So you, again, the Bible, the camera, so many things are taking him now on this course. When do you come up with this idea? Because you're juggling the aspect of
Yes.
going to school, and the entrepreneurial spirit is now taking a hold of him. But you decide to launch this business.
Yes. So that started off once we ended the baseball season into winter break. I really spent a lot of time at home, and I remember I was shooting a bunch of different things, and I went outside and shot a video of my mom's car, and I sent it to my friends, and one of them was like, yo, like, you could be like really good with this. Like, this looks good. I'm like, oh, I threw it in CapCut and put it together. But they was like, yo, this is awesome work. Like, like I reached out to somebody, they want to use your services. I'm like, services? Like,
I don't have services.
I don't have services. So at that moment, I started my page, which was Crisp Shots, and I posted some stuff that I've done. I remember going to, it was Christmas time, and I was going to a family event, and I brought my camera, and I was so nervous to pull it out. And I remember my mom telling me after that, she was like, yo, like, you say you want to do a business with this, but like, you're shy to bring it around your family, so you got to let everybody know, And when she told me that, ever since that time, one of my New Year's goals was to DM 15 businesses a day on Instagram. So when I woke up on January 1st, I started DMing 15 businesses a day. And by the third day, I've had a radio personality reach out to me about content. I've had another guy reach out to me about doing some recaps and stuff. And at the time, I was probably charging like $30 a video. But what I noticed as I started progressively doing it, my first ever client was a young kid for baseball. And during that time, every time I shot a video, I always received tips. Like, and it was to a point where it was like people were kind of just hinting me like, bro, like you were undervaluing your talent, And during that time, I started, doing everything I can, because at that moment we starting back the baseball season. And I'm not gonna lie, when we hit live ABs for the spring season, I hit the best I ever did. I went out there and I was balling out. I was tearing up baseballs. We was doing scrimmages outside and at that moment I had a few schools that I started to get on the radar for when I was posting these clips on Twitter. And it came a moment that I felt like those coaches that I had at the time, I just felt like they weren't genuinely, invested in looking out for me the way I thought they was. And at the moment too, I had developed working with a mentor by the name of Jamar, that guy, Church Pinkston. He owns Church Productions. He gave me an opportunity after I blew up his phone for about 2 months, and he overlooked my calls. But I sent him my stuff, and he was like, "Yo, come by the studio, let's talk." So I went by the studio, and he showed me what he did. We talked, and I told him, I was like, "So when can I come back?" He was like, "I don't know, like if you want to come back tomorrow." I'm like, "Okay." So ever since then, I started going back to his studio every single day and just watching him and doing different things. And I remember one time, as he was teaching me things, he wondered why I was gone so long. It's this hallway in his studios that looks sketchy. And I was gone for like an hour and a half. He was wondering why. He walks back there and I got like 2 cameras set up making a whole short horror film back there. And I sent it to him later and he was like, "That was what you was doing?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Bro, that got me not even wanting to go back there to use the restroom no more." I'm like,
Okay, hold on. I want to say this, and let's also tell you where you can follow him. So
Yes.
you're very active on Instagram.
Yes, ma'am.
You're on TikTok. You're
Yes,
on
ma'am.
Facebook. We tagged. I started following him on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not on TikTok as much, but follow him on there. I went back and was immersed in your videos. I'm watching these commercials. I'm watching the stuff he does with the NFL, baseball, and then I see this short film, which imposter syndrome,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Is that what you're talking
Yep.
about? Okay, I'm not going to give it away, but you have to watch it because I was so engrossed in it. And I was like, "Oh, this is getting scary." And I'm like, "Okay, wait, somebody's coming to the door. What's happening here?" And this girl grabs a knife, by the way. You've got to watch it play out.
Oh my
So
gosh.
go back in his videos, watch that. So where are you most active? Where would you tell them is probably the best to follow
I
you?
would say the best to follow me is on my Instagram
Instagram, okay.
page. Yep, Darian the Director. And for business inquiries, DC Creative Agency. That's my business, which it was not always DC Creative Agency, and it's a reason why I switched the name.
And that is?
And that is because I started to make an impact and inspire people with what I was doing and the decisions I made when I took the decision to tell my coach I wasn't playing baseball anymore. When I decided to trust God at the time and say, I'm going to step away from baseball because it's not bringing me peace. And I knew what was bringing me peace. I started to inspire other kids, inspire other athletes, inspire other people. And people was always reaching out to me to, "Hey, like, I want to come work with you. I want to come do this." So I decided to rebrand my business to DC Creative Agency to not only be able to provide services like videography, photography, creative directing, graphic designers, producers, but also give other young creatives an opportunity to get their foot in the door, get an opportunity to go work with other people, but most importantly, to inspire people and to have a bunch of creators together where they can feel confident they can go out here and build their business.
Again, you can see Darian Crisp is my guest. And it's interesting in life, Darian, you're talking about your mentor. Many times that mentor very much feels like a person that connected to you. And you
Yes.
can go back and thank that person as a leader. But I'm going to tell you, and this is going to be strange for all of you to hear this, but there are times you have to go back to the person who dismissed you, the person who decided that you were not valued and you
Yes.
were not worthy, because what they didn't know is they were put in your life at that very given moment to say, "I'm going to take this away from you. You're going to feel like you hate me, that I'm the worst person in your life, but
Yes.
trust me, something's making us do this
Yes, ma'am.
to lead you because it's your time."
It's your time.
Oh, I got chills.
I agree. I agree.
It was his time. It was hard for him to have that scholarship revoked. But are you hearing this all play out? God had a different purpose for him.
That's right.
Now you're gaining all this momentum. You're
Yes.
getting this attention.
Yes.
Who from in the last maybe year, or when did you start the DC Creative, by the way?
I started DC Creative, I want to say middle of last year.
Okay, middle of last year.
Yeah.
So from middle of last year to now,
Mhm.
who has come to you? And I just saw you at the Essence
Yes,
Festival.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Who did you meet there? I have a picture I pulled.
I met with Chris Tucker.
Yes,
I
you
met with Chris
did.
Tucker. That was a dope experience. Oh my God. She a funny guy.
I was like, oh, look at that. There were a bunch of
Yes.
different celebrities
It
there.
was. But quite after, I started DC Creative Agency, I was I had the opportunities to work. And this is and I stress this enough because God will give you signs of certain things in your life. And I remember I've had a pleasure of working with Ozzy and Miss Yolanda,
Mhm.
but also had a pleasure of shooting a campaign commercial with Wilson Contreras.
Oh, wow, really?
And yeah, and after that, we had a conversation just about baseball and sharing him my story. And he gave some input that made me reflect on a lot of things throughout my journey. And
Mhm.
it was that, we get so caught up in the game of the responsibilities, but you just got to go out there and have fun.
Isn't it interesting, Darian, though, how you are continuing to be pulled back to what your passion
Yes,
was with another passion? So
yes,
see, God still got you in it.
definitely.
It was just not the role you thought you
It wasn't the
wanted.
role but I think during the process of all that, because I end up moving to Atlanta,
Mhm.
um, God brought me back into the game, and after quite reflecting, I had to realize having a conversation with this one guy from my church I met at Panera. I had to realize that where I messed up at in my journey with that, because although during that process, I felt like I wasn't done right, but also felt like I didn't respect the game right.
Mm.
And at the time, being there for my team at the World Series, but in my mind, the devil's antics of telling me that I should be out there playing and all this stuff, but having a straight face. Yeah, a lot of players, a lot of people won't be able to see it. Some coaches will, but God sees that. So God's not going to reward you if you have a selfish mindset in the process. And I realized throughout my journey, it took a lot of reflecting to realize where I was selfish at when not loving the game the right way during my process, my freshman year playing college baseball.
Powerful. Again, he's an old soul, first of all. I was like, gosh, he's like, listen to how he speaks, but the amount that you have learned. Now, you talked about your mom earlier.
Mhm.
Who, besides your mother, was very instrumental in making you the human being that you are? Because you are so respectful. I'm going to
Mhm.
give you mad props. He was talking to me on the phone. He's like, yes, Miss Monica. I'm like, oh, you were raised right. I love this.
Yes, yes. I would say my dad, both of my parents, they did a good well job of raising me, my sister, my two brothers, but also understanding, you know, to treat people as you want to be treated. So growing up, all this stuff that we grew up like, we couldn't even say dang,
Mhm.
and my parents like, no, that's a bad word. So it's just like, growing up and those places, I feel like, my dad and my mom, they just taught us to be very, very much respectful. And luckily, both of my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad's a doctor and he also has his own real estate company. So,
Wow.
it kind of grew in the family. But, I've always carried myself that way too because, you want to be treated as you treat people, you want to be treated, and I just kept that ever since.
Isn't he awesome? I just absolutely love him. Now, you did mention earlier that your parents were going through a divorce,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So that's tough
That
on so
is.
many
It
levels. How did
is.
that impact you?
Um, it impacted me heavily early on, but I remember talking with my brother and telling him when everything kind of first got out, like 3 or 4 years ago, and he told me, he's like, bro, like we knew about a lot of this stuff, but you just got to focus on you. So that's what drove me. That's why I was so occupied with baseball because I was so locked in on my goals that I still love both of my parents, which whatever decisions they make.
Mhm.
But at the same time, your parents give you a platform, but you have to take the rocket to set up your future.
Mhm.
So with what you do to carry on in the future, what you want to build, what you want to do is up to you. So what your parents got going on, that's a battle between them. But you have to make sure you go out and do everything you need to do to take care of yourself.
But they're both very instrumental in your life.
Yes.
This is something we had
Yes, definitely.
you'll love this. We had an author on a few weeks ago, and she's like, divorce may happen.
Mhm.
You two may not be able to stay together, but never leave your children. Always
Definitely.
be instrumental. And they were focusing a lot on dads. And the name of the book is Daddy Don't
Oh,
Go.
wow.
Don't leave your
Yeah.
children, right? It's really, really powerful. But these things happen. So you're hearing from in his mind, a professional standpoint gets pulled away. His parents from a personal standpoint. But so many people do the why me, this happened, and then they're just sitting in a dark place.
Yes.
But I hope they don't stay there. And this is what we're saying is he went to these places,
Definitely.
but then you were finding your purpose. So if somebody asked you, Darian, what's your purpose on earth? What's your answer to that?
My purpose is to use the gifts that God has for me to inspire, because there's no better feeling. There's no amount of money in this world that I know from personally that I can make that won't change the fact of what the smile that you could put on people's faces. There's a place called Chicken and Pickle that I go and I do work at, because it gets my creative juices flowing, the aesthetics. And there was these two kids who they happened to walk past me and see what I was doing. And I was sharing them my same story, and to see their eyes widen and their faces light up gave me a different feeling that no amount of money could ever give me. And I knew that on this earth, I was meant to lead and inspire. And that's what I continue to try to do, to lead and inspire, but to let people know that, God's the head of all of that.
What does it mean to you as you see these young kids looking at you for you to be a mentor to them? Because you talked about your own
Yes,
mentor, but you
yes,
realize they're watching you. Young
yes,
kids are always watching, absorbing as little sponges, and then you are their inspiration.
yes. I tell these kids all the time because, when I posted content, day in the life, 21-year-old entrepreneur, 21-year-old filmmaker, I've getting a lot of people ask me, well, how did you get in the industry? How did you push out your work? I said, the first thing that you have to understand is, do you know God? If you know God, go into prayer and ask God what it is that you're meant to be doing. Because what I see a lot in this generation is people get on social media and they see all these different people doing different things and making a lot of money, but a lot of times they're walking in their purpose, but that doesn't mean that's your purpose.
Mhm.
So you want to lock in with God and have a relationship with God, because when he shares you your purpose, and I say this and I was still with it all the time, this is my motto. When God gives you a purpose and a passion, he will instill in the people to see value in the purpose in which you obtain.
Mm.
And every single time you walk in your purpose and your gift and your passion, God is going to make way for you. God is going to make opportunities for you. God is going to put into people's mind and say, okay, I need to hire that kid, and that drove me to where I am now. That drove me to learning what I needed to learn from my mentor, with him being transparent with me and telling me, kid, you're good. I want to teach you how to run a business. That drove me to, he taught me how to lock in clients. I was literally doing fake phone calls with my mom, practicing locking in clients and negotiating and all these different things, but when you're doing what's for you, God is going to make a way 10 times out of 10.
Preach, Darian, preach.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg, who?
Yes,
Steven,
yes.
give him a call. All right, we're going to take a break. Again, Darian Crisp, please follow him on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, DC Creative, and
Yes.
you will see some of the work that he's done. We're only scratching the surface.
Yes.
By the way, he is going to be filming. I am speaking as the keynote speaker at the National Conference for Jay Bloom this coming
Yes.
Friday, and he is coming to film. I can't wait. He is going to make this beautiful sizzle reel
Yes, ma'am.
that after that's done, we're going to show it to you, and
That's
we're going
right.
to show you his incredible work. But you can see a lot of it if you go on to social media. He's extremely, extremely talented. And if you're looking for someone to do content for you, give him an opportunity.
ma'am.
Again, let's pay it forward and let's continue to lift up our youth, our future generation right here.
Definitely.
All right, more with Darian Crisp when we return.
When you want to feel good, you work out at Crunch. You don't go here, because here feels bad. But here we help you feel good, feel strong, feel rejuvenated.
Join Crunch Fitness today.
Darren, it's been very hot here. Has it been hot in Atlanta?
Oh, it's been super hot.
Don't you want to jump in a pool?
I do. I've not been to a pool yet this summer. I got to hit a pool.
Okay, how
I
about this?
definitely
You're
gotta-
going to film for me and then come over because my
Come on.
pool was built by our friends at Just
Okay,
Pool.
yeah.
Okay, let's do that. I want to introduce you to my
Definitely.
husband. He will love you. I can guarantee he's watching right now going, oh, that was a very good, well-raised young man. Well, we're talking about Just Pools, one of our many sponsors here on the Real Monica Adams Show. Thank you, Madonna and the team. You do incredible work. If you are blessed with having a pool, please, just like anything, you got to tend to it. So don't just leave it there and then like, why is it green? Well, you got to do your own work, right? We're talking about putting the work in today. Make sure that you put the right chlorine in. Make sure you get the water tested. Don't try to do it by yourself, by the way. They are the pros. Just take your water sample up there. Have them tell you, oh, the pH is wrong or the acidity is wrong or dry acid that you need or whatever it may be. You want to keep that pool around for years to come. Just Pools, again, support those that support us. They're located in Arnold. There you go, 3987 West Outer Road South. Give them a call. Tell them that you saw them on our show, 636-464-7110. And we want to thank not only Just Pools, but every sponsor that has a role. And I can't name it yet. Oh, I'm so close. But we have a brand new sponsor that is just getting ready to come on. And we'll actually have a banner that we'll put on the bottom of the screen thanking each and every one of our sponsors. And that list, by the way, continues to grow and grow. And we thank our sponsors and we thank each and every one of you for tuning in every morning for inspiration. Darian Crisp, again, has been our guest in this hour. So if you had to run off to work, I hope that someone tells you, come back and watch this. Share this with your friends and family. Again, whatever platform makes the most sense to them. So what is your favorite content to create?
Oh, my favorite content to create, I would say, I would say films. Like, honestly, films. I love doing commercials. There's this one travel filmmaker that I admire so much. His name is Sam Newton, and he does, like, he travels the world making films for different brands like Sony, Canon, but just travel films that tell stories. I love those films so much, and that's what I aspire to be. I aspire to be able to travel the different world, telling different stories, different short films, different documentaries of different people, or just capturing life. Because I tell people all the time, you know, as I mentored a young girl, and she was telling me like, I'm struggling like figuring out what content to make. I'm like, that's your content.
Mm.
Literally, there's a lot of content creators out here that struggle on days, constantly having the creative juices flowing. But you can make content about that, about something that's relatable, about something other people go through, So that's why with the films that I make, I create how I feel. It could be at the time, or it could be a time I felt. A lot of times it could be how I feel at that time.
When the very first person ever contacted you and said, I love the work that you're doing, I want to hire you, you said earlier that you were only charging $30 for a video because at the time you didn't know this.
Yes.
This is literally our mantra, know your value. Yes. When you understood that and you started having people pay you, but the thing that I love about you is that you're like, I'm not chasing the $1,000, $2,000, whatever. That's not what drives
That's
you.
not what drives
because
you.
when people are driven by money, you're being driven the wrong way.
100%. I was in shock, I was in shock, my best friend, because he did YouTube, I inspired him to do YouTube. He sent me a video back in November, but he sent it to me this year. And the video was me getting in the car and shouting out my business because he was doing a vlog. And I was like, hey, it's D. Chris Shots, videography, photography. Coming to, I don't know, an event near you, $800 a video. At that time, we were joking. Like, I jokingly said that, like, I never ever thought that I can even charge anything like that. And he sent me that video and I was like, bro, like, you charging that and above now. Like, look at it. And that's why I believe so much in speaking things into existence. Speaking things into existence, trusting God, and writing down the things that you will accomplish in life. Because when you write them down, you'll be surprised. It's 2025. I wrote down goals and I've already achieved them goals. And a lot of them goals, I don't even know how, but I wrote them down.
How long ago?
I wrote them down in December last year.
So he just said what I say on a regular basis. So you don't know this about me, but I'm a life coach and I have been for 2 decades. And I have told people that if it always just stays up here and you never put it down on paper, it will get lost because there's so much going on between these 2 ears, what you're hearing, how you're receiving information. If you take it from there in that very given moment, because it's fresh and you have the passion going with it, or you have the sadness or whatever the emotion is, write it down and then speak it out loud. There are 3 levels of that: thinking, writing, speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
You hear it out loud and it is over and over and over again. There's manifestation, that's visualization, vision boards, all those things, because what's happening? You are just laser focused.
Laser focused. That's right. That's right. And, I wrote all those goals down and, I achieved a lot of them. And I remember, I grew my business. I moved into an apartment. At that time, my mentor was guaranteeing me only $1,000 a month to stop baseball and to go work with him as a full-time videographer. And when I did that, at the time, my dad also was telling me that he's moving out of his apartment and I got to find somewhere else to stay. So it was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. But God had me at that time because I remember applying for this apartment. I really loved it. It was a luxury apartment. They had it right in front of the sunset. I love looking at the sun. I love doing that. So having that just is a reflection moment for me. And I remember looking at the apartment, how much it was, and my dad was like, "You sure you can take it?" I'm like, "I'm thinking if I do this and I do this, like everything should add up." I remember that the people got back to me and told me that, and this is when I knew God had that apartment meant for me. They told me, they was like, "Yeah, like your dad was on the cosign. He didn't get approved, but you got approved by yourself." And I was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna take it. Like, that's cool, you know?" And so after that came about, I ended up making, I want to say 4 to 5 times the amount of what my mentor had offered me to work with him by myself, with people contacting and reaching out to me. And I was taken care of every single month, and it got progressively better and better. And I remember I was sitting in my apartment and I felt incomplete a little bit. I just felt like a void. I'm like, okay, like I wanted the apartment, I got the apartment, but like, dang, I just feel something empty. And I remember calling my mom and I was like, "Hey mom, like I don't know why I feel like this, talk with God." She was like, she just moved down to Atlanta because my sister goes to Spelman College.
Okay.
And I remember telling my mom was like, "Why don't you move to Atlanta?" I'm like, I'm like, I consider it. She was like, "You can go back to school, you can go to film school. They got some good film programs down there because the film industry is big in Atlanta, so they had a lot of different things you can do." So I did some research, I prayed on it. And I remember, looking at SCAD, looking at Clark, and then I know my sister had mentioned Morehouse. I was like, okay, let me look at Morehouse. And at the time, it's a lot of notable filmmakers that come out of Morehouse, like Spike Lee. You got talented actors like Samuel L. Jackson, all these dope guys that come up out of there, and it's a lot of creatives on campus. So I'm like, okay, let me look into that, So I looked into it, and I remember at the time I was like, okay, God told me I need to move. I was already 3 months into my apartment. I'm like, I'm gonna listen to God. At the time, I thought that I was going to go down to Atlanta with $2,300 until the apartment people told me, "No, you got to pay two rent, like to break the lease." It was like 2 months. And I remember telling my mom, I'm like, "I got to pay." She's like, "Oh, okay, you have to pay it." like dang, you know what I'm saying? So
you went to Atlanta with how much?
I went to Atlanta with $100.
Woo! There you
I went
go.
to Atlanta with $100, and I remember going down there, and on my way down there, I got a call from a client back in St. Louis, and they booked me for $2,300, which was the amount that I thought I was gonna go down there with.
Come on. God has his hands all over that.
Yeah.
I also read a story. You were featured, by the way, in Heart and Soul.
Yes.
Right? And it was, you will, if you want something bad enough, we said this about a half hour ago, you will move mountains. You will do blood, sweat, tears. People who say, "Oh, I couldn't get this." It was like, did you give it your all? Like, look, if you want something bad enough, you will wake up earlier. You will have barely little sleep. Eventually it will come back to you because God will say, "I asked you to do this, but I want to see just how hard you will work for this." He drove 9 hours back,
9 hours
back again.
I had a client during Thanksgiving down here. It was a 2-day thing. I drove 9 hours to Thanksgiving in Atlanta to spend with my mom and family, then woke back up at 4 in the morning and drove down here. The same way I got down here, I was coming from New Orleans, got back at 12 in Atlanta, woke up at 4:30, packed my clothes and hit the road again.
That's right.
But it's all a part of the process. And it's about how bad you want it. And that speaks to me even getting into Morehouse. At the time, I dropped out of college, and when I dropped out of college and go full entrepreneurship, I did not drop out of classes. So the classes was just tanking. And I remember the morning that I drove down to Atlanta, I walked into Morehouse College that morning, and I had a young guy from Morehouse who was helping me talk with the director. But the director that he had me connected with so I can explain my story, he wasn't there, so I walked out. So I got in my car, and I'm driving like, let me turn around because I need to talk to somebody. The head of the head director of admissions was there, so I talked with him, and he was throwing me these things like, "Okay, so how many credits you got? How many of this?" And at the time, my GPA was a 1.5 because I literally dropped out, you know? And so I explained to him when I told him to 1.5, he looked at me kind of crazy. He's like, you think you gonna walk up in here like, but I was like, I've never been under a 3.0 in my life. Just let me explain. So he connected me with the transfer director of admissions for transfer students. And I sat in there for 2 hours explaining my story. And he was amazed by it. And he was like, you know, here's what we can do. Go retake them classes because I'm still in the system at St. Charles. Retake those classes. You know, we'll see what you do. It's going to be kind of tough to get you in the spring. It's rare that we let transfer students in the spring. So you had to wait a whole year. And at that moment, I was like, but you know, I was like, I do want to go to the school. So I remember him telling me, like, you know, do I need to write an essay? He was like, that was your essay. He was like, you know, you were the example of what a man of Morehouse should be. And, you know, I hope to do the best that I can. I'm like, if it's God's purpose for me to come to this school, then he's going to make it happen. And I remember, you know, it's coming in December and they sent out the admissions, you know, acceptance letters, and I didn't receive one. And I called my friend who was helping me, and he was like, give this person a call. So I called him the first day. He didn't answer. I called him the second day. He answered. I was like, hey, how you doing? It's Darian Crisp, transfer student. You know, I was looking and I didn't get an acceptance information email. And he was like, let me pull up your application. He goes, well, it still says you had this. I was like, at the time, I had already retook those classes. My GPA already jumped back up to like 3.2 or something like that. So I was like, you guys are out of school, so it hasn't get put in the system to show that. You know, so he told me, he was like, here's what I do. He was like, you called me at the right time because I'm actually accepting kids, going through emails, accepting kids into school right now. I'm going to go ahead and accept you into the school.
Oh, yeah. See?
And at that moment, I knew, like, I was like, yeah, that.
But you didn't give up. I also am
Yes.
hearing all the people that were placed in your life, right? You call, somebody didn't answer. Next person, that's who you were
Yes.
supposed to talk to. You're driving away. Nope, I got to talk to somebody. Again, he's hearing whispers. I'm telling you, people in life, you just dismiss too much of this, and that's why your purpose hasn't played itself out yet.
Exactly.
You have to understand that.
Definitely.
He's going to do big things. You can feel it, right? I don't think this is the last time you're going to see him on the show. I can't
Definitely.
wait for you to see what he does with the work he's going to take for us.
Yes.
One more time, I want to make sure you can follow him. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, look at his videos, look at what he creates, watch him on a regular basis, or better yet, have him do something for you personally or professionally. So again, DC Creative, you can watch, you can find him more information here that we have for you on screen. You can find his website, or as I mentioned, he's very interactive with you on Instagram. Some really beautiful pieces that he's done. And the thing that I love is that you are very similar to me, that we love to tell stories.
Yes.
To me, I got into this business because I knew the power of this and the power of the camera can
ma'am.
change lives. And that is it. That's what this should be. It also is the reason why I walked away from the news, because I was like, that's not serving anyone, but giving them inspiration is.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that's what we need more of.
Definitely.
You're so
Definitely.
good.
Thank you.
Tell
I
your mom and
appreciate-
dad thank you for
I
raising
will.
such a good son.
Thank you. Definitely.
Okay, so we do wrap up every show with faith.
Yes.
100 Days to Freedom. That's the name of the book.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to let you choose 100 Days to Freedom from depression, from fear and anxiety, from shame, or from anger. Which one of these do you want to pick?
Let's do fear and anxiety.
See, how many times does everybody pick fear and anxiety?
Yes.
Okay, that is how we'll wrap up. We'll also tell you about a couple of the mobile Monicas we have on tap for you next Friday, and one at the end of the month. And by the way, do you have a business where you want us to take the show on the road, bring it to you? I don't care whether it's here in St. Louis, Missouri, or as we just recently did, we went to Fredericksburg, Texas, and did 11 shows in 3 days. That's right. Doesn't matter where we are. I've come to you from Italy. I've come to you from Cabo. Let's go travel the world together. Maybe you need to just follow and film me.
Definitely.
So we're going to break you from fear and anxiety when we return.
Carroll House is now the contemporary furniture design center.
We now have the largest selection of the latest ultra-modern furniture.
Sleek European designs, unique metals, bold lacquers, gloss.
Well, welcome back. I cannot wait to turn this, and we will turn this show into our podcast, which drops on Thursdays. Todd Michaels, by the way, will be our featured podcast tomorrow on all the audio podcast platforms. So sometimes you've got to watch the story, then other times you have to hear the story, just the same way that we said when it's in your brain, you think it, then you write it, then you speak it. So I love to have the talk show and the podcast as two separate entities, because a lot of times you need to hear it all over again. So put those earbuds in, take a walk, or just sit under a tree, get out in nature when it's not so oppressively hot, and listen to the story. So we will let you know when Darian will be featured on the podcast in the coming weeks. Okay, Darian picked 100 Days to Freedom from Fear and Anxiety. These are the books, by the way, that we read from Stephen Arterburn. So this one's on day 72. We're almost through this book. Talking to yourself. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. That's Psalm 19, verse 14. So here's the question we have. Are you in the habit of putting yourself down? When you make a mistake, do you call yourself stupid? For some people, it's a lifelong habit. So let's decide to end that practice today. It's powerful for you to hear your voice in your own ears, no matter what you hear yourself saying, whether it's something negative about yourself or a situation, or maybe it's a message of fear or of hope. You tend to believe what you say. Stop for a minute. Think about what you hear yourself saying. Are you loving? Are you kind? Are you helpful to yourself? Or do you tend to be sarcastic, negative, judgmental? Do you berate yourself? The scriptures talk about how what is in our hearts is revealed in our speech. You may not realize how your own voice may be ratcheting up your level of anxiety, your worry, your fears, your concerns. Begin today to be aware of what you're saying. When you make a mistake or you're confronted by something unexpected, take a minute before you respond. Listen to your own voice. You will begin to recognize the ways in which you may or may not be saying what is true. I want you to focus on expressing truth and uplifting others and, of course, yourself. Look for the good in every situation and what will honor God. It is a good habit to cultivate. Again, you just got to get in a good habit. Zig Ziglar said, evidence is conclusive that your self-talk has a direct bearing on your performance. Anne Lamont said, put your own oxygen mask on first. I watch the self-talk that goes through my mind, and if I'm being critical with myself, I shake myself out of it. And Chuck Swindoll said, thoughts, positive or negative, grow stronger when fertilized with constant repetition. What did we say? Think, write, speak. Speak positive about yourself, though. Here's today's prayer. Lord Jesus, as I speak, help me to be mindful of what I say. Help me to be loving, kind, gracious to myself and to others. And as I seek your word, may truth be revealed in my life. Amen. Oh, I got chills.
Amen.
It was a good one, right? It fits a lot of the things that we're talking about.
Does.
Darian, thank you for coming all the way in from Atlanta.
Yes, ma'am.
I cannot wait to work together with you on Friday. Let's do some big things together, my friend.
Let's do it.
Yes?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so Mobile Monica's coming up next Friday. We talked with the ladies from NCJW yesterday. We are compiling our models. If you were still in town, I would have you as one of them because we have men's and women's clothes. It's going to be a fun little, hey, what can you take me and what's going to be the version of myself? So you can dress a certain way, and then sometimes people have another vision for you. I can't wait. I love these makeover shows. This one's going to be at 295 North Lindbergh with NCJW. You heard about the for-profit and the not-for-profit side of the ladies yesterday. This is going to be a lot of fun. They also have some really great events coming up that we talked about yesterday. If you didn't see that show, please be sure to go back and watch that. And then don't forget, it won't be 7 a.m. in the morning on Friday next week. It'll be a 9 a.m. show. And it's a fun one, right? We get to have fun and do the little makeover aspect. Then, July 31st, we want you to join us at T-Spout in Chesterfield. That's our next Mobile Monica, and that's going to be a blast. I want to pack her place. She and I and this message that we have, very synergistic. She's all about health and wellness and really what is life-changing about what we put in our bodies. I mean, you see behavioral changes in kids when they start to eat better, think better, live their lives in a certain balanced way. So July 31st at the T-Spout in Chesterfield, we will be there. It will be at 11 a.m. so we can have a little early lunch or a late breakfast. They do, by the way, have breakfast all day long, and you're looking at some of that yummy food. Avocado toast. That's what I'm ordering. ordering that day, and a wonderful tea. So would you like us to come to you? info@TheRealMonicaAdams.com. Just shoot me an email, and we would love to do just that. Thank you to Darian Crisp. Thank you to you, of course, to all of our sponsors, and the list keeps growing. We can't wait to tell you about a new sponsor coming on board. Tomorrow, we will be at Yuppie Puppies Forever Rescue for a little positive talk time, playing with the doggies, and then giving you some inspiration. We're also going to do the parade of animals so you can see all the ones that need to be adopted. Do you need a dog? He's like, I can't afford a dog right now.
I can't, but I would love a dog.
We always ask you to adopt, don't shop. There's so many rescues that need your help. So folks, there's one thing that I always say, and that is to believe in yourself, to know your value. But the greatest thing you can be is kind.
That's right.
God bless you all.